An Alaska cruise has been on our travel wish list for decades, and we finally took one in September to Alaska's Inside Passage to Whittier near Anchorage. We departed from Vancouver, British Columbia on the Royal Princess. Embarkation at Vancouver's Canada Place was a breeze, despite the horror stories that we'd heard while researching this port. We had to surrender our portable kettle at security, but we got it back at the end of the cruise. The Royal Princess is roughly the same size as the Celebrity Eclipse that we sailed in March of 2024. Even though it felt less open, the features and amenities were similar to the Eclipse. Our detailed walkthrough of the Eclipse is linked in the video description, so we'll just cover some of the differences of the Royal Princess here. Our stateroom was smaller than on the Eclipse, but still had a sofa, room for our magnetic hooks, and room for our suitcases under the bed. We wanted a balcony for this cruise, and the partially obstructed balcony was much cheaper. The balcony itself was decent sized, and the adjacent lifeboat obstructed the view down. But for most of the cruise, it was no problem at all. The food on board was generally excellent. Vic had frequent Filipino dishes. The desserts were super tempting. And, as we hoped, there were always plenty of seafood options. One of the coolest parts of the ship was the 16th deck sea walk. And, unlike the Eclipse, there was self-laundry. Since this was our first Princess cruise, we had to indulge in some 1970s nostalgia. We departed after dinner, sailing around Vancouver Island as the sun set, cruising on into the night and through the next day. On the morning of day 3, we arrived at Ketchikan, our first stop and the southernmost city in Alaska. A free city bus service comes every 20 minutes, and we took it past downtown, up the Ketchikan Creek, to our farthest point of interest, the Totem Heritage Center. The Tlingit people are indigenous to the coastal areas of the region, and totem poles are the most visual and well-known cultural tradition of the Tlingit and their neighbor peoples. The poles can be used ceremonially to honor ancestors, celebrate clan lineage, retell common legends, mark notable events, or more functionally, as welcome or even directional signs. The tradition goes back countless centuries, but the large poles that are the most famous were only made possible by steel tools brought by Europeans. But the totem pole isn't the only symbolic and colorful indigenous tradition. The word Ketchikan is derived from the Tlingit name for the creek, which was used for millennia as a Tlingit summer fishing camp, because for the past 15,000 years, Ketchikan Creek has been a major spawning area for salmon. Salmon born in the creek swim to the ocean where they live most of their lives. They eventually return to the mouth of the creek to begin their final journey, where they first must get past a group of sea lions hungrily waiting for a salmon feast. From there they continue upstream, pausing in sheltered parts of the stream to rest for the next stage. Until they get to the rapids and the salmon ladder. Watching salmon jump as we'd only previously seen on nature programs was a childhood dream come true. The final stage is in the calmer stretches upstream, and most don't even make it this far. But the ones that do make the final leap forward to their spawning ground, and then, exhausted and mission accomplished, reach the end of their lives. The modern Ketchikan was founded in 1885 to support a salmon cannery, and the town grew along the creek. Adding logging and commercial fishing to the economy, and completely displacing the Tlingit fishing camp. Creek Street is the way to see the 19th century historic Ketchikan. On the way back to the ship, we saw a distillery open, so we popped in and had some great cocktails for much less than on the ship. Moving on from Ketchikan, we bypassed a large landslide north of town. And as the sun was starting to set, we caught some dolphins off the side. Right at dusk, we saw humpback whales. Sailing overnight again, the sun was just rising as we pulled into Juneau, Alaska's capital. Juneau and Honolulu, Hawaii are the only state capitals accessible only by air or water. Disembarking after breakfast, Avic decided to take a whale watch excursion to catch a bus to another boat, and she had some success. I opted to stay in town. The Tlingit name for the city means base of the Flounders River, and the modern town was founded in 1881, naming the water Gold Creek after the prospecting that drew settlers to the area. The cruise terminal is a mix of waterfront and historic buildings. The waterfront continues on over a mile, eventually reading Taku, the Alaska whale sculpture. Back in town, the Alaska State Museum is worth a visit. The collection of Tlingit and other indigenous artifacts was fascinating. The kayak was an indigenous innovation, as was waterproof clothing from bird or fish skins. And the snow goggles were a big surprise. And Elizabeth Peratrovich, a Tlingit woman and civil rights pioneer from the 1940s, made great progress against racial discrimination in Alaska. Sailing again overnight, the next morning we were in Skagway. But a landslide by the docks meant we had to be ferried into town. The gateway to the Yukon, our day in Skagway was fantastic, and to be continued, along with the rest of our time in Alaska in upcoming videos.